Hi there, it's me again, Deb Shinder, running for mayor. And today I want to start the process of answering the candidate interview questions, the same ones that were posed by Kellie McKee to some of the other candidates in the city council race. I'm going to do it in some manageable chunks rather than doing an hour-long interview. I'll do it in 3 parts or so and then post those. So this is part 1, and the first question is community connection. How long have you lived in Rowlett, and what's your favorite thing about the community? Well, I moved to Rowlett a little over 20 years ago with my husband. That was in 2004, and at that time, we had been married for about 10 years. It had been our dream during our whole marriage to live on the lake, and we had spent a decade building a business and working 12 to 15-hour days and 6 to 7 days a week to enable us to make that dream come true. And so we did. We love our home. We love the lake, obviously. And we love all the wonderful wildlife that comes with it, the birds. We have swallows that come in every spring to nest in our eaves, and cardinals that we feed year-round. The majestic herons and egrets that patrol the lakeshore. I love all that. I'm a big animal lover. But most of all, I love the people that I've gotten to know in the city. I have never had so many friends whom I consider to be my besties, whom I trust implicitly, who have offered so much support, not just political support, but practical, helping with actual physical things, emotional support, helping me through difficult times, celebrating with me when I have good times. And this is not just in my own neighborhood, but in many different areas of the city. There are some very special folks here, and I am absolutely blessed to be able to know them. Second question, leadership and experience. What organizations, boards, or volunteer work have you been involved with in Rowlett? And how has that experience shaped your understanding of the city's needs? Well, shortly after moving to our home here, I got involved and I was appointed to be president of the Harborside HOA. Through that, I got to know some of our city leaders, council members, and mayor. And when they found out that I had served on a council and in other civic organizations back in Seagoville, they encouraged me to get more involved in city government here. So I served on the bond committee in 2008 to 2009, and I was the chair of the facilities subcommittee where we recommended to the council to prioritize funding a new police station and an animal shelter. I am so excited that we will finally be breaking ground for those later this month. After that, I served on the Charter Commission, then on the Board of Adjustment, and I was serving on the Planning and Zoning Commission when I made the decision to run for council in 2022. I'm also a member of CERT, which is the Community Emergency Response Team, and ARES, which is the Amateur Radio Emergency Service. I got my technician and then my general ham operator's licenses in 2023. And my call sign is Whiskey 5 Delta Echo Bravo if anyone out there wants to connect with me via radio. I'm a longtime member of the North Texas Crime Commission since way back before I got on the council, and I represent Rowlett there now, and also represent our city as a member of the Rockwall County Emergency Services Corporation, the Transportation Infrastructure Coalition, and the Strategic Planning Committee 2050 for Rockwall County. I served on the Texas Municipal League committees, and I also served as a delegate to TML's Legislative Policy Summit last July, which was a fantastic experience. I was able to bring some of Rowlett's concerns and some of our proposed policies to that body to take to Austin. On the City Council, I chair the Court Governance, the Government Affairs, and the Public Safety Subcommittees. That last one is one that I'm especially proud of because I proposed it and founded it when I first got onto the council I think it has been really useful in facilitating communication between the police and fire departments, the city management, and the city council members. I previously served as the liaison to the Animal Shelter Advisory Board, and I currently serve on the Economic Development Advisory Board and on its downtown subcommittee. Next question is motivation to serve. What inspired you to run for office, and what unique qualifications or perspectives you bring to this role? Well, my decision to run for council in 2022 came about in direct response to the pandemic and the government response to the pandemic. A couple of years prior to that, I had retired from full-time security and compliance writing. I was enjoying traveling around the world, which was something I hadn't been able to do when I was younger. And I believe that all those travels to Europe and South America, Central America, Mexico and Canada, the Caribbean, really broadened my horizons and gave me a worldview perspective on things. But then COVID came along, and that changed my perspective again. It changed my priorities, as it did, I think, for many people. My two big takeaways were, one, how much power the government really has over our lives, from local to the federal level, and also how finite our lives really are. We have a limited amount of time to make a difference in this world. And regardless of how old we are, that time can be up at any moment. And I think, COVID really made that hit home for a lot of people. I have been involved in public service for most of my life in one way or another. And I realized that with my background and my experience, I still had a lot to give to my community. And I felt an obligation, almost a calling, to run for office. Now, after 3 years on the council, I'm running for mayor because I believe that our city can benefit from my leadership. The mayoral role is about much more than just knowing how to run a meeting, although I do know that, having been the parliamentarian for the cities of Balch Springs and Seagoville when I was city secretary there. In some ways, the mayor's just another member of the council, and you hear that all the time, that he or she has the same one vote on the agenda items and is bound by the same rules and laws, including the prohibition on interfering with the city manager's operational authority, as every other member of the council. However, under our state law and our home rule charter, the mayor also has some specific duties and responsibilities that other council members don't have. The mayor, along with the city manager, sets the agenda. Now, 2 council members can also place an item on the agenda, but the mayor can do it all by him or herself. The mayor also controls the order and the flow of the agenda and keeps order in the meetings. The mayor is the ceremonial head of the city and is the only city official who has the legal authority to issue proclamations, all those nice proclamations that you see being presented at our council meetings. Our practice here in Rowlett has been for the mayor to allow 2 or more council members to initiate and issue a proclamation also if they want to. And as mayor, I would certainly continue that practice. I want to give the council members more involvement, and I want to empower the council members more as part of the legislative and the policymaking body of the city. The mayor also represents the city in regional, state, and national venues, or can send the mayor pro tem or the deputy mayor pro tem in his or her place when there are scheduled conflicts. Most importantly, though, under the Texas Disaster Act, the mayor serves as the emergency management director when there's a local disaster and acts as the governor's agent with the power to declare local states of disaster and to request state of emergency aid and to manage resources during those emergencies. And I have been there and done that. When we had a major storm that resulted in a power outage throughout the city in May of 2024, I was the mayor pro tem at that time, and Mayor Margolis was out of town. I spent long hours in the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center, with the Emergency Management Coordinator, the fire chief and police chief, the city management personnel, the directors of the various departments. And I had the experience of actually declaring a local disaster. I believe I'm uniquely qualified to take on the duties of mayor because of my past experience in different roles in city government, and because I have the availability and the ability to perform all of the duties that are required of a full-time mayor in the city of Rowlett. Next question, professional and civic experience. How has your background, whether in business, public service, or community engagement, equipped you to serve effectively on the city council, or in this case, as the mayor? My municipal government experience has spanned my whole lifetime, and in fact, it runs in the family. My dad worked for the city of Dallas for 32 years. My original training was as a paralegal. My training experience, I planned to become an attorney. That didn't work out when life and family and children got in the way. But I went to work for the city of Balch Springs as city secretary, then was recruited by the city of Seagoville for the same position. Those are small towns. They had small budgets. The city attorney was a lot less involved. So I was the one who wrote ordinances and contracts that were reviewed by the attorney. I was the parliamentarian at the meetings. I left that position in Seagoville to run for council, and I was elected there and was appointed as public safety commissioner. Well, I fell in love with law enforcement, and so much so that I went to the police academy and became a commissioned police officer. I worked on the streets and then taught as an instructor at North Central Texas Council of Governments Regional Police Academy and at the Eastville College Criminal Justice Training Center in the 1990s. Then in the 2000s, I got into cybercrime and cybersecurity. I wrote a book. I became a full-time trainer, author, and consultant, running my own business until I retired to travel in 2017. And then came COVID, and as I mentioned before, that's when everything changed. Next question, lessons learned. Tell us about a time in public service, in your job, or in your personal life that you wish you could go back and do over, and how you would do it differently. Well, that brings to mind an old song, Regrets. I've had a few. Yes, in retrospect, there are things that I would do differently if I could have a do-over. I think we all have those things. In my personal life, my former husband was an alcoholic, and I'm not going to say that I wouldn't have married him, because then I wouldn't have my son, who is one of the most precious things in my life, along with my daughter. But I wouldn't have stayed in that marriage for 8 years. I tend to have an obsession with honoring my commitments, with doing what I say I'm going to do, with keeping my promises. Most of the time that's a good thing, but every now and then it's not, and that was a case where it was not. As a council member, undoubtedly the most controversial thing I ever did was leading the way in the removal of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Commission from the city's boards and commissions. I don't regret doing that. There were a lot of reasons that it needed to be done, and I will address that in a separate video. But I do regret a little bit how it was done. I wanted to put it on the agenda as a separate item, and I was talked out of that based on the argument that it would result in a huge protest that might turn violent, and that it was better for the city to do it as part of the adoption of the Boards and Commissions Handbook. And ultimately, that's what I did, along with another council member. I was accused of being sneaky for doing it that way. I can't really argue with that. It was perfectly legal to do it that way, but I was never completely comfortable with that tactic. And now I wish that I had insisted on doing it with full transparency. If I had a way to do it over, that's the way that I would change it. And that takes care of the first batch of candidate questions. I'll be back shortly to answer more of those questions. In the meantime, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And I would really appreciate your vote for Mayor of the City of Rowlett.